Hey there, English learners. Welcome back to the English Podcast Circle, your go-to place for improving your English while diving into real-life topics that truly matter.
That's right. I'm Max.
And I'm Lena. Today, we're tackling something I'm sure many of you can relate to, wanting to learn English but constantly putting it off.
The classic struggle. You know you should study, but suddenly scrolling through your phone or reorganizing your sock drawer feels way more important.
Or you tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow turns into next week, and next week turns into, well, never.
Ouch, that hits close to home, but here's the good news. You're not alone, and today we're going to figure out why this happens and how you can finally break the cycle.
All right, let's start with a quick question for everyone listening. Think about your English learning journey right now. Maybe you want to speak fluently, understand movies without subtitles, or ace that job interview in English. You can picture that future version of yourself, right?
You see yourself confidently chatting with native speakers, understanding every word in your favorite TV show, or nailing that presentation in English, but then reality hits.
And instead of opening your textbook or practicing with a language app, you suddenly remember you need to check your email, clean your room, or worst of all, wait for the perfect time to start.
Yep, and that's where procrastination sneaks in. We get so caught up in waiting for the right moment or making the perfect plan that we never actually take the first step.
And when we do start, we often feel overwhelmed and give up too soon. It's like standing at the edge of a pool, dipping your toes in, and thinking, the water's too cold. Maybe I'll swim tomorrow.
Exactly, so what's the solution? That's what we're breaking down today, how to stop procrastinating and start making real progress with your English.
Oh, and before we dive in, don't forget we've got a free resource for this episode.
It's not just a summary, we've included a vocabulary list, comprehension questions, and even a mini challenge to help you practice what you learn.
So, you'll not only overcome procrastination, but also boost your English skills along the way. Grab it from the link in the description.
All right, let's jump in and figure out how to turn "I'll do it later" into "I'm doing it right now."
All right, let's dive into Chapter 1. Why do we procrastinate learning English? Max, why do you think so many people struggle with this?
Well, Lena, I think it's because learning a new language isn't just about memorizing words or grammar rules. It's deeply tied to our emotions and mindset. For example, one of the biggest reasons people procrastinate is fear of failure. They're scared of making mistakes or sounding silly, so they avoid practicing altogether.
That's so true. I've met so many learners who say things like, I'm not good enough yet, or I'll start when I'm better. But here's the thing, you don't get better by waiting. You get better by practicing, even if it's messy at first.
Exactly, and then there's perfectionism. Some learners think they need to have the perfect accent, know every word, or speak without any errors before they can even try. But that's like saying you won't cook until you're a master chef. It just doesn't make sense.
Right. And let's not forget the classic excuses we all tell ourselves. Things like, I don't have time, or I'm too busy, or I'll start next month. But the truth is, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. It's not about having time, it's about making time.
Absolutely. And sometimes the problem isn't even about time. It's about overwhelm. Learning English can feel like a huge mountain to climb, especially if you're just starting out. You think, where do I even begin? And that uncertainty can paralyze you.
Yes, and let's talk about another big one, lack of motivation. Some days, you're just not feeling it. Maybe you're tired, stressed, or just not in the mood. And that's okay. But the key is to find ways to stay consistent, even on those days when motivation is low.
Totally, and here's something else to consider: fear of judgment. A lot of learners are scared of what others might think. They're worrying about being laughed at or criticized if they make a mistake. But the truth is, most people are too busy thinking about themselves to judge you.
That's such a good point. And honestly, making mistakes is how we learn. Every error is a step closer to fluency. So, instead of fearing judgment, we should embrace mistakes as part of the process.
Exactly. So, to sum it up, the main reasons we procrastinate learning English are Fear of failure, being scared of making mistakes. Perfectionism, thinking you need to be perfect before you start. Common excuses like I don't have time or I'm not good enough. Overwhelm, feeling like the task is too big to handle. Lack of motivation, not feeling inspired to study. Fear of judgment, worrying about what others might think.
And the good news is, once we understand why we procrastinate, we can start to tackle it. In the next chapter, we'll talk about how to break the procrastination loop and take that first step.
But before we move on, let's hear from you. What's your biggest reason for procrastinating when it comes to learning English? Share it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
And don't forget to grab the free resource we mentioned earlier. It's packed with tips, exercises, and a mini challenge to help you overcome procrastination and boost your English skills.
All right, that's it for Chapter 1. Stay tuned for Chapter 2, where we'll dive into the procrastination loop, breaking the cycle. Let's turn I'll do it later into I'm doing it right now.
We're diving into Chapter 2, the procrastination loop, breaking the cycle. Max, let's start by explaining what the procrastination loop actually is.
Sure, Lena, the procrastination loop is basically a cycle of habits that keeps us stuck. It usually goes like this. Point 1. You have a task to do, like studying English. 2. You feel overwhelmed, bored, or unmotivated. 3. You avoid the task by doing something else, like scrolling through social media or cleaning your room. 4. You feel guilty or stressed about not doing the task. 5. The cycle repeats the next time you have to study.
I think we've all been there. But here's the thing, once we understand this loop, we can start to break it. The first step is identifying our triggers. What usually makes you procrastinate, Max?
For me, it's usually overwhelm. If I look at a big task like learning 50 new vocabulary words, I feel like it's too much and I just shut down. But I've also noticed that boredom and lack of motivation are huge triggers. If I'm not excited about what I'm learning, I'll find any excuse to avoid it.
Same here. And sometimes it's not even about the task itself. It's about fear of failure or perfectionism. I'll think, what if I mess up? Or I need to wait until I have the perfect study plan. And that just keeps me stuck.
Exactly. So once we know our triggers, the next step is to interrupt the loop. And the best way to do that is by taking small, manageable steps. Instead of saying, I'll study for 2 hours, start with something tiny, like I'll listen to 1 English podcast episode or I'll learn 3 new words today.
Yes, small wins build momentum. And here's a trick: I love the 2-minute rule. If you're feeling stuck, just commit to doing the task for 2 minutes. For example, open your English app and do 1 exercise. Most of the time, once you start, you'll keep going.
That's such a great tip. Another way to interrupt the loop is to change your environment. If you always study in a noisy, distracting place, try moving to a quiet corner or a cozy cafe. Sometimes a change of scenery can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about accountability. If you tell a friend or join a study group, you're more likely to follow through. It's harder to procrastinate when someone's cheering you on.
Totally. And here's one more idea: reward yourself. After you complete a small task, give yourself a little treat. It could be something simple like a cup of coffee or 5 minutes of your favorite show. Rewards make the process more enjoyable.
Love that. So, to recap, here's how to break the procrastination loop. 1. Identify your triggers. Are you overwhelmed, bored, or unmotivated? 2. Take small steps. Start with tiny, manageable tasks. 3. Use the 2-minute rule. Just commit to 2 minutes of work. 4. Change your environment. Find a space that helps you focus. 5. Find accountability. Share your goals with a friend or group. 6. Reward yourself. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small.
And remember, breaking the procrastination loop isn't about being perfect. It's about taking one small step at a time. Even if you only study for 5 minutes today, that's 5 minutes closer to your goal.
Exactly. So, let's hear from you. What's one small step you can take today to break your procrastination loop? Share it in the comments, and let's support each other.
And don't forget to grab the free resource we mentioned earlier. It's packed with tips, exercises, and a mini challenge to help you break the cycle and stay on track.
All right, that's it for Chapter 2. In the next chapter, we'll talk about set goals that don't overwhelm you. Let's turn those small steps into big progress. We're moving on to Chapter 3. Set goals that don't overwhelm you. Max, why do you think big goals can be so intimidating?
Great question, Lena. Big goals like become fluent in English can feel overwhelming because they're so vague and far away. It's like looking at a mountain and thinking, how will I ever climb that? But the truth is, you don't climb a mountain in one giant leap, you take one step at a time.
Exactly, and that's where SMART goals come in. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. These types of goals break down big dreams into smaller, actionable steps. Let's break it down, Max.
All right, let's start with specific. Instead of saying, I want to improve my English, you could say, I want to learn 5 new words every day. That's clear and focused.
Yes, and then there's measurable. Your goal should have a way to track progress. For example, I'll listen to one English podcast episode daily and write down 3 new phrases I learn. That way, you can see how much you're improving over time.
Next up is achievable. Your goal should be realistic and within your reach. If you're a beginner, saying, I'll read an entire novel in English this week might be too much. But something like, I'll read 1 short article every day is much more doable.
Totally. And then there's relevant. Your goal should matter to you and align with your bigger dreams. For example, if you want to improve your speaking skills, a relevant goal might be, I'll have a 10-minute conversation in English with a friend every week.
Finally, there's time-bound. Your goal needs a deadline or time frame. This creates a sense of urgency and helps you stay on track. For example, by the end of this month, I'll be able to introduce myself confidently in English.
So, let's put it all together. Here's an example of a SMART goal for English learners. Every day for the next 30 days, I'll learn 5 new words and use them in a sentence. It's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
That's a perfect example, and here's another one. I'll listen to 1 English podcast episode every morning during my commute and write down 3 new phrases I hear. It's simple, but it adds up over time.
Exactly. The key is to start small and build from there. Once you achieve one SMART goal, you can set a slightly bigger one. For example, after a month of learning 5 words a day, you might increase it to 7 words a day.
And don't forget to celebrate your progress. Every time you hit a goal, no matter how small, give yourself a little reward. It could be something simple like treating yourself to your favorite snack or taking a moment to feel proud of yourself.
Yes, progress is progress, no matter how small. So, let's hear from you. What's one SMART goal you can set for your English learning journey? Share it in the comments, and let's cheer each other on.
And don't forget to grab the free resource we mentioned earlier. It includes a SMART goal worksheet to help you plan your goals and track your progress.
All right, that's it for Chapter 3. In the next chapter, we'll talk about make English a part of your daily routine. Let's turn those goals into habits. We're diving into Chapter 4, make English a part of your daily routine. Max, why is it so important to make English a regular part of our lives?
Great question, Lena. The key to mastering any skill, especially a language, is consistency. It's not about studying for hours once a week. It's about practicing a little bit every day. That's how you build habits and make real progress.
Exactly. And the best part is, you don't need to spend hours studying. There are so many simple ways to weave English into your daily routine. Let's start with one of my favorites, labeling items in your house. Max, have you tried this?
Oh, definitely. When I was learning Spanish, I stuck little notes on everything: my fridge, my mirror, even my coffee mug. It's such an easy way to learn vocabulary without even trying. For example, every time you see the word window on your window, it reinforces the meaning.
Love that! Another great idea is thinking in English. Instead of thinking in your native language, try to describe your day or your surroundings in English. For example, while you're brushing your teeth, think, I'm brushing my teeth. The water is cold. I need to buy more toothpaste. It's simple, but it helps you practice forming sentences naturally.
That's such a good tip, and here's another one: switch your phone language to English. It's a small change, but it forces you to interact with English every time you use your phone. You'll start picking up words like settings, notifications, and download without even realizing it.
Yes, and if you're feeling adventurous, you can even change the language on your social media apps or Netflix. It's a fun way to challenge yourself and learn new vocabulary in context.
Another idea is to listen to English while you're doing other tasks. For example, play an English podcast or audiobook while you're cooking, cleaning, or commuting. It's a great way to multitask and immerse yourself in the language.
Totally. And don't forget about daily journaling in English. Even if it's just a few sentences, writing about your day helps you practice grammar, vocabulary, and sentence structure. Plus, it's a great way to track your progress over time.
That's such a good habit, and here's one more tip: use English in your hobbies. If you love cooking, try following an English recipe. If you're into fitness, watch workout videos in English. It makes learning feel fun and natural.
Yes, the key is to make English a natural part of your life, not just something you do during study time. And remember, it's not about intensity, it's about consistency. Even 10 minutes a day can make a huge difference over time.
Exactly, small, consistent efforts add up. It's like planting a seed and watering it every day. You might not see results right away, but over time, it grows into something amazing.
So, let's hear from you. What's one way you'll integrate English into your daily routine? Share it in the comments, and let's inspire each other.
And don't forget to grab the free resource we mentioned earlier. It includes a daily English habit tracker to help you stay consistent and motivated.
All right, that's it for Chapter 4. In the next chapter, we'll talk about the 2-minute rule. Just start. Let's turn those small habits into big progress. We're diving into Chapter 5, the 2-minute rule. Just start. Max, why is it so hard to take that first step when it comes to learning English?
Oh, I think it's because we often overthink it. Lena, we tell ourselves, I need to study for an hour or I need to finish this whole chapter, and that feels overwhelming. But the truth is, you don't need to do everything at once, you just need to start.
Exactly. And that's where the 2-minute rule comes in. The idea is simple. Commit to doing something for just 2 minutes. It's so small that it feels easy, but once you start, you'll often find yourself continuing. It's all about building momentum.
Yes, for example, instead of saying, I'll study grammar for an hour, you can say, I'll read one paragraph of an English article. That's it. Just one paragraph, and guess what? Once you start, you might end up reading the whole article.
That's such a great example. And here's another one. Instead of committing to a full podcast episode, just say, I'll listen to 1 minute. Chances are, once you start, you'll get hooked and keep listening. It's like tricking your brain into getting started.
Exactly. The hardest part is often just starting. But once you take that first step, momentum kicks in and motivation follows. It's like pushing a boulder. It's tough to get it moving, but once it's rolling, it's much easier to keep going.
Yes, and the beauty of the 2-minute rule is that it works for anything. If you're feeling stuck, just ask yourself, what's the smallest step I can take right now? It could be 1. Writing 1 sentence in English. 2. Learning 1 new word. 3. Practicing 1 pronunciation tip. 4. Watching 1 short video in English.
And here's the best part: even if you only do it for 2 minutes, that's still progress. It's better than doing nothing at all. Over time, those small steps add up and create big results.
Absolutely. And the more you use the 2-minute rule, the easier it becomes to start. It's like building a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger you get.
So, let's hear from you. What's one thing you can do for just 2 minutes today to start your English practice? Share it in the comments, and let's motivate each other.
And don't forget to grab the free resource we mentioned earlier. It includes a 2-minute challenge tracker to help you get started and build momentum.
All right, that's it for Chapter 5. In the next chapter, we'll talk about turn learning into a game. Let's make English fun and exciting.